Hello friends, welcome back to the shop as we begin to work on this LJ Peretti pipe for Jeremy Larsen. Now the first thing we're going to do, as I talked about in the last video, is we're going to work on the shank extension here. Now to do that, and I want to do that first for primarily one reason. I can do all the sanding and filing and everything, and if I scratch this I don't care because I'm going to refinish the whole pipe anyway. So taking care of this first really will save me a lot of work down the road. Now to put a shank extension on here, I could try to hand file a little tenon on this or something, but that's not going to work out well. I know that. What I really need to do is turn this on the wood lathe. Of course, there's no good way to chuck something like this into a lathe. They're just not designed to hold these sorts of things. So what I'm going to do is I've made a little fake stem out of Delrin. So this is not drilled, it's just turned down to the right size for the shank. And we can sink that home. And this is going to be held in the chuck, and then we're going to bring a center in, and to keep the center pressure on, I've made a small angled block that I've carved out a little bit, and I'm going to be gluing that onto the probably right about there onto the block. And I'm just going to use hot glue for that. It'll be plenty strong enough for what I need to do. It will all be held under tension because the pressure points are going to be coming this way. So there's never going to be any pressure up or down on this except for the turning tool, which will of course be pushing side to side. So that means I'm going to have to take light cuts when I turn this, but that's okay. We can do that. And this will allow us to do a much neater job. So I'm not going to film this just because my wood lathe is not really set up for recording, but we'll be using a standard parting tool, and we're just going to trim this down. And I don't know how far in we're going to come yet. I'll have to measure that and make sure that it's something that'll work aesthetically with the rest of the pipe. So I'll get on that and I'll bring you back when I'm done. Alright folks, so this is where we're at right now. We have been able to turn what is now a tenon on the end of this because the extension will fit over this, so this will be a tenon. I turned this on the wood lathe to 5/8 of an inch, and I chose 5/8 because it was smaller than the smallest diameter here, and I have a 5/8 Forstner bit, so I can use that to make the hole, the mortise in the extension. I've left the glue block glued on here, just so you can see that, and it's just kind of globbed on there with hot glue. This will crack off quite easily and will not do any damage at all to the pipe. But you can see where the center was placed, and it held it quite stably. There was a fair amount of chatter, but the problem was, because this thing is turning, I can't really get the rest up close enough to support the tool. So I actually had the rest back about here, and the tool was going to chatter then. But anyway, we've been able to turn this down. It's a fairly straight mortise, and should work just fine for the shank extension. So to do the extension, I've decided to go with a white acrylic. And this is actually, the name of this acrylic is Cream Swirl, and I don't know if you're going to see, but this is a very subtle, cream swirl going through it, and it's nice. When it's polished up, it looks almost marble-like, and yeah, I like this material, and I think it will be a really nice contrast between the briar and the stem, the black stem. So what we're going to do now is we're going to put this in the lathe, face it off, drill a 5/8 inch hole. This, by the way, I believe is 3/8. I forget the measurement, but I did measure that, and I based that on roughly half the length of this large bulky section of the stem, just to kind of try to balance things out a bit. So I will drill a piece of this out 5/8 and then part it off. That will get epoxied onto the shank, and then we'll begin the shaping of the acrylic to match the shank and the stem. So let me go ahead and do that. I'm going to actually leave this block glued on here because I may want to chuck this up again for the final sanding of the acrylic. So it's easier just to leave this on. And like I said, this hot glue will just crack off quite easily without leaving any damage. So I'll go ahead, I'll fabricate the acrylic extension and epoxy that in place, and I'll bring you back before I start the shaping. Okay folks, so this is where we are at right now. I have made the extension band, and you can see it's fitting on there quite well. It's actually a little bit longer than it needs to be. I can file that down as I'm shaping it, so it will be dead even with the end of the briar. And the junction is good. You know, got a nice light tight junction there, and it fits quite tightly. Now the briar, as I mentioned, is a bit chattery because of the way it was turned, so that's good. That'll give the epoxy something to bite to. I also did a little bit of roughing up on the inside of this, just grooved it a tiny bit, again to give the epoxy something to bite into. And that's really not going to be much of an issue here because it's you know, you're never going to put any pressure on this. It's just going to sit there. Any pressure is going to come from when you insert the stem, and that of course is going to be directed to the sides. So the main job of this is to sit there and look pretty and protect the shank from cracking. So we should have no issues at all. Alright, so I am going to epoxy this in place, and then once that is the epoxy is set, I'll let it set probably overnight just to be sure. I'll begin shaping by first off bringing this end down so that it's even with the briar, as I said, and then assembling the whole thing. I'll just begin filing at an angle to sort of make that smooth transition between the stem and the stummel all in one pass. So that's going to take some time. There's going to be quite a bit of filing and sanding here. So I will probably end this video at this point, and I will bring you back in the next video once this is shaped and we're ready to begin work on the stummel and the stem. So hope you've enjoyed this, and I will keep you posted as things develop here, but I think we're in very, very good shape. So I hope you tune in for the next installment, and until next time, I will look forward to talking to you all again very soon. Goodbye now.